Okay, so I've got this doing 2 animation clips here. Great. Now, let's connect this to some of the other stuff we've done. Now this up here, I'm going to go ahead and rename this circle moving for now. Cool. Okay, so this is a thing that I would want to have multiple instances of in my game. Okay, my very simple game right now. So it needs to become, if I want to put multiple copies in my game, it needs to become a prefab, right? So how do I turn it into a prefab? By dragging from here to here, it does the process. So if I take this and drag it down here, now it looks like I just added another thing, but now, or another circle picture, but I didn't. This is the sprite, the raw image. This is the prefab. And you can tell a few different ways. One, it changes the box icon here to blue, right? So that's blue equals prefab. Now it's a prefab. And over here, if I click on it in the asset window, it says open prefab. It obviously has stuff and components on it. Whereas if I click on the sprite, it's just the stuff about importing the sprite. Everybody with me there? So I'll do that again and delete this. Go ahead and so by dragging from game object to asset window, that creates the prefab, right? So that's usually how it goes. Like in the game, you kind of assemble the stuff that you want to be into the prefab. Then you sort of drag it back down into the asset menu to save that configuration of stuff. Everybody with me there? Okay, but watch what happens now. The whole reason we make a prefab is that we want to have multiple copies in the game. Once it's a prefab, I can start just making a whole bunch. If I hit play, what happened? If I stop, I have a whole bunch of circles. If I hit play, yes. Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. She is right. They prefab saved everything, including the animation information and the keyframes. And keyframes are not relative. That is not obvious immediately, okay? They're not relative. They are absolute. So even though I drug all these other circles into my project, when I hit play, they all read their keyframe information, which is the same because they are prefabs, right? So how do I avoid, because this seems severe, this is undesirable, right? This is something I would want to be able to do. I just want to demonstrate this the wrong way so you understand why this is important. Everybody with me here so far? Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of these. And here, instead of dragging this down to make a prefab, I'm going to create an empty game object that'll be the parent. So almost every prefab you make should have this empty game object at the top of the hierarchy, right? And that should not have any keyframes on it. So that will allow you to move the object. So here, this is the game object. I'm going to change this name to circle parent. I'll take the prefab here and drag it down. And so now I have this relationship. This is now the parent of this thing. Okay? And I can demonstrate this if I hit play. If I move the parent, the child moves, right? Everybody with me? Okay, so now if I drag this down to make my prefab, now when I make other copies and hit play, they're separate. This is really important to get conceptually here. So the technical part of it is that whenever you make a prefab, it should be an empty game object at the top that does not have keyframes, so that all the keyframes below it are relative to that parent. And so now when I drag it in, they're all animating the same, but now their coordinates are in relationship to their parent transform. So I'm able to easily, super easily drag them, in and have them not all snap back to the same spot. So this is something you want to do every time you make a prefab, especially here at the beginning. You kind of lose track of it. You're sort of keyframing this one thing and then you make a prefab out of it. But then if you want to make more of them, all of a sudden they're all back in the same spot, which is not what you want really ever. Does that make sense? And so again, in order to fix that, at the top of any hierarchy, create empty. Gives me a new, just empty game object. There's no stuff. It's just a null, right? Or, yeah, it's a null. In Cinema 4D, it's a null. In After Effects, it's a null. Here, it's just an empty game object. It's just a transform we put there. And then you can change the name of it and put the circle thing underneath. Everybody with me? Okay. For homework, go through this process with one of the sprites you made. Okay, bring it in, give it 2 animations. I don't care what they are, just make it move 2 different ways and go through the process again. Just practice, right? Go through, do this, go through the animator. Yes?
So its own, in its own
Unity file. The Unity, I wanted everybody to see the possibilities with the other game, but like there's a lot of stuff in that one. You want to try and keep it clean. There's enough confusion in the clean, empty Unity, versus once you load it full of a ton of stuff. So yeah, just take one of the sprites, import it into this blank one, and then go from there. And I'll link to this. There's a much shorter, how long is this? 50 minutes at regular speed. So if you double time it, 26. Unity, what is the name of this one? This is Learning Unity 2D Sprites. There's some good stuff here. So he goes over sprites, and then on number 4, another view on what we're doing, which I think would help. So timeline animations, creating new timeline, a little bit more about the state machine, okay? And then he goes into a little bit of scripting. This chapter 3, optimizing sprites, that's not, this is an older version. That's not so critical. Focus on 2 and 4. But I'll link the whole series there. Everybody with me? So take a sprite that you made and do something with it to practice, and then watch these 2 for Wednesday. Cool? All right, great.